Thursday, August 10th, 2023, Webster Town Board Workshop. Tonight's a pretty special one, only has one agenda item. We have, I'll say, some dignitaries in the house tonight. But Jerry Goldman from Woods Oviatt is going to do a presentation, and to the extent that he's going to get assistance from Josh Huff.
Yes.
I always want to, and/or Tom Walsh, and/or David Mann. Those three gentlemen represent the Coca-Cola Fairlife team, and their team includes Haskell Engineers, which Josh is here from. And then when Tom Walsh, Mr. Walsh, who is on his way, he's with Barclay Damon, who I think is really somewhat representing Coca-Cola Fairlife on many aspects of this project. And then David Mann is, to the best of my knowledge, David, you're the highest ranking Coca-Cola Fairlife executive on this project that I've met.
Yeah, the day-to-day lead for the project.
Sure. So with that all being said, Jerry, I'm going to hand the baton to you. I know you have a semblance of a PDF or PowerPoint to present on where we're at as of August 10th on the seeker process on the Coca-Cola Fairlife project.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. Mr. Supervisor, it's a pleasure to be here. Good to see everybody again. And what our objective is tonight is to present where we stand with seeker, where we are going forward with seeker in the review of the Fairlife project. Because I am sitting next to Josh does not mean I'm part of his team. I'm consulting with the town on this matter, and of course you have introduced Josh and Tom, who I assume will be here momentarily, and Dave Mann. But I'd also like to introduce the team from MRB Group, who are the consulting engineers for the town on this matter. Lance Brabant and Paul Chatfield, who have been working diligently on the review and on the issues for the town. So we'll follow along with the PowerPoint, and I will explain exactly how the seeker process works. For larger projects, which are referred to as Type 1 actions, there are specific procedures which we have to follow under town law. And the first one is that the applicant must file a full environmental assessment form as part of that process. Part 1. The full environmental assessment form, Part 1, in and of itself, is 14 pages. The Haskell team and the Coke and Fairlife team have submitted a supplement to that, which is approximately 17 or 1,800 pages, which provides additional information and detail because of the magnitude of the project and because of the thoroughness and detail of their review, and which will help the town in the evaluation of not only the environmental impacts, but also the project itself. Town Board has, I'm not going to state a script because I rarely state a script because I usually don't have one, but the Town Board, of course, has the industrial use permit approval, which is basically the last step in this process. The project which is being proposed is a permitted use in the industrial district, but requires an industrial use permit from the Town Board, but it also requires site plan approval from the Planning Board, and there are variances which are necessary from town code primarily to provide mitigation to neighbors on the particular site. So this overall process is one which is headed up by dealing with the environmental review, because a determination of significance under seeker has to be completed before any decisions are made by any of the boards. So the first stop is here, and the last stop is here.
Right.
The environmental review is conducted in a project of this magnitude by a single lead agency. And the only people that can be lead agencies are are those which have approval authority, which are referred to as involved agencies. The town had declared their intent to be the lead agency for this environmental review on June 15th of this year. And as a result of that, Fairlife filed their full environmental assessment form and the supplements, Part 1, to the town in a submission dated June 21st of this year. The notice of intent to serve as lead agency was sent out administratively, by Josh Artuso to all the involved agencies on June 23rd. That particular request to act as lead agency had to be accompanied by a copy of the application to the town board, as well as the full environmental assessment form. Fortunately for us, and fortunately for the environment, we're authorized to do that electronically. So we didn't have to send 1,800 pages of information out to all of the involved agencies. They received their copies electronically. Fairlife did submit a supplement to the full environmental assessment form dated July 11th. So as a result, in the abundance of caution, because there is no specific regulations that address a supplemental submission, we sent out another notice to the involved agencies, again giving them the opportunity to contest lead agency status. It was always clear that no one was going to contest the lead agency status because undertaking the environmental review is a heavy lift, and most people would prefer to have somebody else do it. And since the town board magnanimously agreed to do it, then there was no challenge within 30 days of the initial notice, and we don't expect that there will be any challenge within 30 days of the second notice, which 30 days expires, I believe, on Saturday. So to that extent, we don't expect that there is going to be any issue, and accordingly, the town board has placed on its tentative agenda for August 17th action on a resolution to confirm its lead agency status. Town board had, the Part 1 is the part which is filled out by the applicant, and that is a process which is mandated by the regulation, by code and regulations, do give the applicant, project sponsor, the opportunity to fill out Part 1. So for those who may be concerned about whether this process is being run by an applicant or not, this is something which is required to be done by the applicant. Compare that with Part 2 and Part 3 of the environmental assessment form, which are mandated to be completed by the lead agency. And Part 2 of the EAF is identification of potential project impacts. That particular analysis of identification is pursuant to a form which is part of the seeker regulations and which sets forth all of the various issues which could occur. Impact on land, impact on traffic, impact on drainage, impact on sewers, the like, all of those characteristics. There are questions which have to be answered as part of that Part 2, and those questions are guided by a document called the Seeker Handbook, which does provide some guidance in terms of how to fill all that out. Ultimately, once Part 2 is completed, we move on to Part 3, which is an evaluation of the magnitude and importance of project impacts and determination of environmental significance. Part 2 and Part 3 are completed together and generally are reviewed and adopted together by the lead agency. The lead agency has a legal obligation to take what's referred to as a hard look at all relevant environmental issues and make a reasoned elaboration of its rationale in coming to its determination of significance. In terms of the actual paperwork, what we are going to do as town staff and consultants are going to work on a draft of a Part 2 and Part 3 for the board's consideration. It's the board that makes the ultimate decision and can take the document, work with it, and decide what to do with it and whether they are comfortable with what they have or whether they want to make changes on it. But the town board has placed also on its tentative August 17th agenda a resolution to adopt that Part 2 and Part 3 and to make a seeker determination of significance. So the determination of significance is one of two things. In a type 1 action, it is either what's referred to as a negative declaration, which sounds bad, but actually is pretty good in the whole scheme of things, because it would be a determination that the project will not have significant adverse environmental impacts. Let me put a little emphasis on the words, significant adverse environmental impacts. Doesn't mean that there won't be any environmental impact. It means that there won't be anything which is environmentally significant. If that negative declaration is adopted by the town board, that concludes the seeker process, and that releases the rest of the boards and other outside agencies to go make their decisions on their applications. The other alternative is what's referred to as a positive declaration. Positive declaration is a determination based upon everything that's put in front of you that the project may have significant environmental impacts and would mandate the preparation of an environmental impact statement. The idea of what the applicant has done in providing all of the information that they have to date is to provide sufficient information to allow the board to make a determination of significance. And hopefully what they are saying is that the project is essentially pre-mitigated, and that is that all potential adverse environmental impacts have been addressed so that the board can make that finding that the project will not have significant adverse environmental impacts. So that is the framework of how the decision-making goes, and that's how the environmental review process goes. For some of you, this is things that you have done a number of times. For some of you, this may be kind of new in terms of following what the steps are. But we have been, as a team, Josh and everybody else, reviewing the documents that have been received. The environmental assessment form, the expanded environmental assessment form, the 1,800 initial pages, a supplement which was provided, and additional information which has been provided by Fairlife have also been shared with other involved agencies which have the ability to comment, and some of them have. And some of them, frankly, probably should have commented by now, but we are urging them to get them in now and not wait until later. So as recently as this afternoon, we received comments from one of those agencies. We are awaiting the full county planning review under General Municipal Law, Section 239M. Josh has been monitoring the portal, and right now it's in review, and we anticipate that will be coming within the next couple of days. So at this point, we will be taking a look at all of these issues, and as they're deemed to be relevant, the necessity of providing a full narrative on any of the potential environmental topics normally only is required if the impacts are marked in the Part 2 of the EAF as moderate to large, as opposed to none to small. But in some cases, there is some real need, even if there is a finding in the Part 2 that is none to small, to provide a narrative to really give some substance to the review of it and to indicate that the town has taken that hard look as is required under the seeker regulations. So to that extent, that sets the procedural framework for what we have here. And the work continues. Our intention would be to provide a draft in advance of a meeting so that the board has the opportunity to review. That means we're seriously on the clock right now if we're looking to keep the 17th. So in that regard, that's my introduction. And I think I will leave it to the board to ask any questions that they have, either a procedure or a substance.
I do have a question.
Go ahead there, Patty.
Is there a deadline for the other agencies to make comments?
There really isn't. There's no obligation for them to make comments.
Right.
We request them, and a lot of them are normally pretty slow in terms of their response. Sometimes you gotta push a little bit in order to get the response. The only one that does have a time limit and time frame is Monroe County Planning on the 239, what's referred to as the 239M referral. That is supposed to be done within 30 days of the time it is referred by the town. That 30 days technically expires on Saturday.
Okay.
So in terms of getting input from Lake County DOT and others, they don't have an obligation to respond at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I was going to say that the Honorable Mr. Walsh came in during Jerry's presentation. Tom, do you see we have we got you up here. Where were you?
I didn't want to interrupt you.
You're at the head
It's
table.
okay. I'm interrupted all the time,
But you
Tom,
know
it's
what?
okay.
He had it right.
Well,
No need to interrupt.
And as we do get into whether it's a question and answer or just a round table of discussion amongst the town team that's working on this, and also the Coca-Cola Fairlife team that's working on it. I will say when you said, Jerry, that Josh is working on it, just so we're not confused, Josh
Yeah,
Huff
we have two Joshes.
is with
I have another-
Haskell. Josh Artuzo,
Correct.
who is the town's director of community development, he, along with you and Woods Oviatt, along with MRB, are somewhat the town team that is going to basically be assisting the town board on saying, in good faith, can we vote on this resolution that there is hopefully negative impact? And whether we can do that by next Thursday, which is the tentative scheduling of that. Now, within that, a project of this magnitude, I mean, having David Mann here from Coca-Cola, having Tom Walsh here from Barclay Damon, and having Josh Huff here from Haskell, invaluable, the working relationship between their team and our team on, I think we're all aligned on the fact that we would like to get through the seeker process above reproach. I've been using that term a lot, but also not dragging it out for 4 years. So there's the challenge. I mean, you want to do it the right way. And I would imagine, and attorneys say that you should never ask a question in court that you don't know the answer to, right? Well, this is in court, so I'm going to ask this
can
question. A project like this, I think we sent this off to 30-plus agencies, Josh Artuzo?
It's a little bit less than that, but there were many, yeah.
Okay. Is that a large amount of agencies to send something to relative to other projects you're asking for comments on?
I would believe so, yes.
Okay. 1,800-page supplement to the 14 pages. Is that a relatively large digital file to send over to these agencies?
I believe so, yes.
You
Yeah.
probably busted a server or two, it's okay.
Probably.
Well, and I always, going back to, when you're in school, like, the teacher got the paper, the term paper was 10 pages, well, that's a C. If it was 27 pages, that's an A. That's an A+. 1,800, you did not leave anything out. That's pretty robust. So, and you would expect that, because this is a very large project. In every way you can metric compare this to for something that happens in New York State seeker. So with that being said, I certainly, Patty, thank you for the first question. Have at it.
So we're gonna have to wait for the county, correct?
Well, the county, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait for that and get that comment in. One thing that would be valuable to our team is, as you have seen pieces of this project and you've heard, because as town board members, you always hear from your public, okay? If there are any particular issues that you would consider to be environmentally sensitive that you would like us to focus on, we certainly can have added attention to it. We understand the traffic will be one of those, and MRB does have as a sub-consultant Erdman Anthony Engineering, which did a review and which has provided that review, which is part of our overall package right now. So we have the town's input on the traffic. We have preliminary comments from County DOT, who is an important player because Basket Road and Salt Road are both county roads. Obviously, the town in what is being proposed in terms of the extension of Bolter Industrial Parkway and the planning and everything else, I think there's been a lot of foresight into what the overall traffic pattern would be to minimize the overall impact to the town's road network and to the county road network. So, you know, that is something that clearly is going to be an issue that we'll be looking at, no matter how the recommendation of checking the boxes is on the part two. There'll be narrative relative to that. So if there's anything else which jumps out at you right now, feel free to share. If there's something that comes in your mind over the weekend, I hope everyone has my email address. If not, it's pretty easy. It's first initial, last name at woodsoviet.com. So feel free to share that.
To Councilman Cale's question about we're waiting on the county, but going back to Patty's question.
Yes.
They have a deadline of Saturday?
They have a 30-day deadline
Right.
of Saturday
Okay.
to give a response. Now, if they don't give a response, there's no real penalty to them. What it means is that you're free to proceed without them, okay? That 30-day period is a marker in which you're supposed to wait for their response, okay? Every indication is that they are going to give us the response literally any day now, of which we have one left before Saturday, right? So, and what they do as part of their process is that they send information out to a whole series of agencies, county and state agencies, and solicit their initial review and comment as well. So we're anxiously waiting for it. We really want to see what that says.
Jerry, would you be surprised if they didn't respond in 30 days?
I would be surprised if they didn't respond in 32 days. I think it could arrive on Monday.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think that there's some pressure on them. And in reality, look, I mean, the fact of the matter is that I think that there's a lot of interest in this project, and I think for that reason, it's really incumbent on the county to go and do that. I know Josh is prepared, if he hasn't already, reached out to the person who coordinates the county planning reviews to try to accelerate the process. And, you know, we hope it's forthcoming.
I don't mean to laugh, but I know how the county operates. I've been involved with them for many years, so I would not be surprised if we didn't see it in the 30 days.
Yep.
And I think Councilman Abbott is probably the most versed of the town board members on seeker based on his career as an engineer in these type of projects. I know that I've gone to school on him on a lot of this, and I still feel like I'm learning every day about how this seeker process works, especially a type 1. With that being said, when I first looked at this and I just assumed, and you know what happens when you assume, that the seeker is all within the 100-plus acres that is where the plant is being built. I think I've gotten education in the last month that, no, that it goes beyond that. Pardon?
Could be, the sewer has a lot to do with it,
Well, then
the traffic network has a lot to do with it.
Power coming on site, I know.
RG&E's supply of power.
Yeah. And is the county, in a lot of ways, involved in this commenting on the traffic because of the fact that Salt Road is a county road?
Yeah.
That if these were town roads and not state roads and whatever, they wouldn't be as prevalent at all about
Right.
commenting.
Right, they would not be what's referred to as an involved agency, they would be an interested agency. They could comment if they thought it was appropriate, but generally speaking, these agencies don't go out of their way to comment because of their workloads unless there's something specific which relates to their jurisdiction. So to that extent, clearly, the state, the county has jurisdiction over Basket, clearly has jurisdiction over Salt.
Yeah.
104 at Basket, before we really kick in the expressway, or after we kick in the expressway, however you want to term it, is still a state road. So the state would have an interest in the impacts at 104 and 104 in Basket, for example. So, yeah, they're involved and they're engaged to the extent that it does impact their road network.
Yeah. And I guess the 1,600-foot extension being proposed west of the end of Bolter to Salt Road, that's encompassed within this seeker?
It is encompassed within the seeker to the extent that the underpinnings of the traffic analysis
Okay.
speaks to the connection of that road, and that deals with the trip distribution, the analysis of levels of service and the like, and with all of that, the underpinnings of the traffic report are tied to that extension. If that extension were not to come to fruition, that would really involve a reanalysis of the traffic and what the traffic impacts would be. So while there will not, there will be some analysis of impacts related to that. As a road development occurs, there may be some further analysis, whether it's formal in seeker or otherwise, dealing with issues related to the road, pavement section and the like, and construction. But, yeah, the sewer at the same time, RG&E's participation, as Bill pointed out. Remember, this is a coordinated review among all these agencies. We are the lead agency for that review. So when we are done with our seeker analysis, then they're free to go ahead and to do their own thing, if you will, and their own decision-making relative to the matter. If it's a negative declaration, that is the end of the seeker process. If it were to be a positive declaration and we were to do a full environmental impact statement on this, each of those agencies would have to make seeker findings. We would have to make seeker findings for us, and each of those agencies would have to make independent seeker findings. If it is a negative declaration, the environmental review process is deemed complete, but everyone's underlying applications still have to be evaluated on their own criteria. A negative declaration does not mean that the planning board has to grant site plan approval. The negative declaration does not mean the zoning board has to grant variances.
Right.
They each have standards that they need to review. But because of the coordinated review is completed, those agencies are relieved of the obligation of studying the environmental impacts
Right.
as it relates to it, but they still have their underlying jurisdiction, they still have their underlying obligations to analyze.
So, and it's interesting, and I hope this ties into overall what you just said, Jerry, is that back on July 20th, the town board did a resolution at our board meeting to retain campus construction management as our project coordinator on behalf of the town. Actually, Dan Andrews from campus is here tonight. And as in the last couple weeks, as our side, as our team at the town has sat down with Dan and Jared and various members of campus, there's been some discussion about, well, what part of this, what comes under this project that needs to be coordinated from, from the town perspective. And we've said, really, it's the sewer plant on Phillips Road and that project. The conveyance pipe project that it has, sewer mains coming out of the Tibor site. The 1,600 foot of road that is proposed to be extended. And the 650,000 square foot plant that Coca-Cola Fairlife plans on building. We had some kind of back and forth on this at the town level. I'm like, they all need to be considered by us because they all, I think that's what you just said, they all somewhat have an effect on how this seeker is being looked at.
It is all part of what's referred to as the action. You don't do seeker on an application, you do seeker review on an action. And the action that we're talking about is the construction, primarily, initially, the construction of the plant itself. But there are other aspects of this action that are part of the environmental review.
Right.
Because seeker mandates that you review the entire action unless there's a reason to what's referred to as segment or to consider other aspects of it at a different time. And if you were to do that, it can be no less protective of the environment than it would be than if you analyzed it at the very
Sure.
beginning.
And not to confuse the issue, but the sewer plant on Phillips, I mean, Charlie, I think we had long ago done the seeker on that when the sewer plant, we were getting into that and doing the phase 2 on that long before Coca-Cola Fairlife came around. When they came around, we tweaked it, but we just amended that specific seeker because it's all encompassed within what we were doing on that site anyway. Is that correct?
Yes, basically,
Okay.
that's correct, yes.
So, but I think, and I think we have our side, the team now, all agreeing that, yeah, we do have to look at all 4 of those items that I just mentioned because they all, well, I mean, in layman terms, and I guess I'll look at you, David, man, that your goal is to be pushing product out of there in the 4th quarter of 2025.
That's right.
It's a simple goal. Boy, is there a lot of things that are running in parallel that really have to happen so that goal can be met. And I think those projects that we just described, all of them effectuate that. So I think we, Dan, I'm glad you're here to hear that. That's why we have to oversee all 4 of those from a standpoint to make sure that, what's going on out in the back door, we're not, oh, we should have thought about that as we're going out the front door on another thing, so, anyway. But the road thing, the extension, is what I guess you already said that Monroe County has to opine or whatever because Salt Road is a county road. Now, just looking into the future, on the other side of that, heading west is Mitchell Dean, which is right now privately owned by Xerox. We already are involved with Xerox because there's part of the 1,600-foot extension goes through land that is theirs, and I know we're working with them on how that's all going to play out. I think they're very receptive. They appreciate the parcel of land that extension of road is gonna be on the southern part of one of their parcels. That's a valuable thing to
Sure.
have, to have that road there to go out to Salt and have egress and access, through on and off ramps at Salt Road. So I feel pretty confident that that they're gonna be cooperating in that. But it really was just January, or July 20th, a couple of weeks ago, that the town board did a resolution. Because that's gonna be a town road, I don't see any other way that wouldn't be a town road, the extension of Bolter Parkway to Salt. I don't want to use the term, we're the lead agency on that. Not so much from seeker,
Yeah.
but as a town road, who else is going to lead the charge on that? But there's a lot of parties involved in that. It's
Oh,
an
yeah.
interesting,
There are, and, and road construction of that sort, in some cases, is undertaken by a project sponsor and then offered for dedication by the municipality. Sometimes it's the municipality's initiative to do that. It's not always in the best interest of municipalities to have roads that dead end, if you will. Interconnections always have value in terms of the effectiveness of the road network, in terms of maintenance of roads and the like, and for everything else. So, very often it is an objective to see these connections in place and to have them effective. And certainly, if you have all the stakeholders who are aligned relative to that, that's all the better. Again, initial word that Josh has got Josh Artuso, as recently as today, is that the county, at least preliminarily, has expressed that they look at this favorably in terms of the connection. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't either. I really appreciate the presentation. I appreciate everyone being here. It's just another example of the partnership that is ongoing within the town and the Coca-Cola Fairlife people and everyone else who's involved. We all want to be informed and know how we're moving forward, and I really appreciate the lesson in seeker tonight. Because it.
Felt like I was back in class.
Exactly, I know. Like the
Now you don't have to come to the seminar in October, okay? It's
The
good.
professor is here, so I really appreciate that.
Did you just get a continuing education hour?
I did last year. A year ago in May, we did, yeah.
So thank you all.
Thank you.
Dave, Tom, Josh, I mean, I feel like you got slighted.
Well, Dave, I'm going to jump in and say, there's some more homework, which obviously needs to get done before we hit the end.
Well, we-
So,
we have to make sure the county-
it's important for the town board, I think, to hear how you guys feel about that in terms of the analysis and what we're doing. I know that you've been working on a lot of aspects of it already and have a lot under your belt, but you may want to share with the board how you're feeling about things.
Well, I'm feeling we have a lot to do. The town's consultant provided comments. There were good comments, fair comments. We have to respond to all of them. Our Josh has been working night and day on that. And we have been doing it with an eye towards what the town board's going to have to do with the Part 2 and the Part 3. So as we go through reacting to the comments and responding to them, just this afternoon, we were talking about what that means by way of, is this a no impact or a small impact, and this is why we think it is what it is. So it's interesting, we're thinking along the same lines. I think the one thing that we're doing in the seeker is this, as Jerry said, we're assuming that the Bolter extension project started before our project was there, which I think is accurate, in that the town is carrying that along. So that this seeker is not going to be the seeker for your extension. But we got to talk about it, just like you were saying, because they're all pieces, right? So we're trying to talk about it, but still acknowledge that it's, you know, it's over here, just the way the Phillips Road plant is over here. But that conveyance, right, the conveyance is clearly part of our project, right? Yeah.
And we don't, the degree of analysis really depends on how critical it is in the whole scheme of things. So it's important to have the road connection because that's where the traffic underpinnings are and everything else. Do we have to dive down into the drainage aspects of what happens with the extension of Bolter Industrial Parkway because we are adding impervious surface? No, we need to say that there will be sufficient room to allow that drainage to occur, but not necessarily do the full drainage analysis as part of this, for example. So to that extent, yeah, in the same way that if you do a simple subdivision of land, you're supposed to analyze what happens with the remainder of it, but obviously you often don't know what's going to be the remainder of it. So you make some assumptions, you conceptually analyze it, and it's more a generic review on some of those aspects. Is that a fair statement from
Yes,
your perspective?
we're aligned. Thought lawyers were supposed to argue.
I'm
Please don't.
I'm not one of them
Please don't.
arguing lawyers. I'm the get 'em done lawyer.
If you two start to argue, that's gonna cost you more money, Dave, and it's gonna cost the town more money. Let's not have them argue. Well, I don't wanna hold anybody up. Is that it? And I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry. Thank you.
And thank you for coming, guys. And that, I guess, concludes our workshop for tonight. Thanks.